Good morning, everyone. How are you? It's Megan from Hillcrest joining you for story time. I'm going to be reading two different stories today, and if you have them at home, that's great. We can go ahead and read them together. So we're going to be reading 101 Dalmatians, and then we're going to be reading Six Swans from the Read to Me Mommy Treasury. Let's go ahead and start with the Six Swans, and then we'll read the 101 Dalmatians. The Six Swans. Once, in a faraway land, a king was hunting in a forest when it began to get dark. The king looked around and saw that he was lost. Suddenly, he spotted an old woman. "My dear lady," he cried, "can you show me the way back to the palace?" "Yes, your majesty," answered the old woman, who was really a witch, "but only if you promise to do something for me." "What is it?" asked the king. "I have a beautiful daughter," replied the witch. "If you promise to marry her, I will show you the way. If not, I will leave you alone in the dark with the hungry wild animals." The king was so frightened that he promised to marry the girl. The witch led him to her cottage where the daughter was waiting. It was true what the old woman had said. Her daughter was beautiful, but there was something about her that made the king shudder. However, he'd given his word, so he lifted her onto his horse. Then the witch showed him the way home. The king married the girl the very next day. The king had been married before and had 6 sons and a daughter whom he loved more than anything in the world. But he did not tell the queen about them because he did not think she would be kind to them. The king decided to hide his children in a castle deep in the forest. Even the king himself didn't know the way there. He had to roll a ball of magic string through the forest to show him the path. The king secretly visited his children every evening. But the new queen soon began to wonder where the king went in the forest every night and what he did. Whenever she tried to follow him, she would get lost and have to return to the palace. The queen tricked one of the king's servants into telling her the secret. When she found out about the king's children, she knew she had to find them. The next day, the queen searched the castle until she found a magic ball of string. Then, using a spell she had learned from her mother, she made some magic shirts of white silk. When the king went hunting the next day, she took the ball of magic string and the shirts and went into the forest. The 6 sons thought it was their father coming toward the castle and rushed out to hug him. As soon as the queen saw the boys, she threw the magic shirts over their heads. In an instant, they turned into white swans and flew away. In the evening, when the king went to visit his children, he found no one but his daughter. "My brothers flew away," she told her father sadly. The king was heartbroken. "You must come home with me, where it is safe," he told her. But the girl didn't want to leave in case her brothers returned. She begged to stay in the castle one more night. Finally, the king agreed. When no swans returned to the castle, the princess decided to go and look for her brothers. She searched all night until she found a hunter's hut. Inside were 6 little beds, so she hid under one and closed her eyes. Suddenly, there was the sound of beating wings. 6 swans flew in through the window and landed on the beds. The girl watched in amazement as the swans blew on one another. At once their feathers fell off, just like shirts. "My brothers!" she cried. The 6 boys were overjoyed to see their sister, but they were also worried. "You can't stay here," they said. "It's a robber's den. If they find you, they will be angry. Each day we are human for only 15 minutes before we turn into swans again." "How can I free you from the spell?" asked their sister. "It is too hard to ask you. You must sew 6 shirts from tiny starflower petals, said one brother, and you must not speak or laugh for 6 years. I will do it, the sister replied, and with that her brothers turned into swans again. The princess set off to start collecting starflowers. She sat down by a tree and began to sew. Before long, a king came from another land. A king from another land rode by with his men. "What are you doing?" asked the king. Of course, the girl would not speak. She just carried on sewing. The king's heart was touched. He wanted to protect this beautiful, silent girl. So he took her home and he showered her with gifts. Still, the girl did not speak. She just carried on sewing. But the king soon fell in love with her, and they married. The king's mother was jealous of the new queen and wanted to get rid of her. When the girl had her first baby, the king's mother stole the child and gave it to a woodcutter. She told everyone the queen had given away the baby. Of course, the queen would not speak to say it was a lie. She just bit her lip and carried on sewing. Luckily, the king did not believe his mother. "My wife is too good to do a wicked thing like that," he said. A year later, the queen had another baby. The king's mother did the same thing. She stole the child and gave it to the woodcutter. "Now do you believe me?" she demanded. The king shook his head. "If she could speak, she would tell us she is innocent," he cried. But when their third child disappeared, the king started to have doubts. "All my wife wants to do all day is sew," he thought. "Maybe my mother is telling the truth." The king begged his wife to defend herself, but she would not speak. Sadly, the king decided she must be guilty. "You will be punished in the morning," he told her. The queen sewed all night. It was the last night of the 6 years she had been given to make the starflower shirts, and she had not once uttered a word or laughed. At sunrise, the 6 shirts were almost finished. Only one sleeve was missing from the last shirt. As the king's men took the queen to see the king, the air was filled with the sound of beating wings. 6 white swans landed. The queen threw the starflower shirts over their heads. At once their feathers vanished. Her 6 brothers stood before her, though the youngest still had the wing of a swan instead of an arm. "At last I can speak," she sobbed. Then she kissed her husband and told him what happened and how the king's mother had taken her children to the woodcutter. When the king heard the truth, he banished his mother forever. The king had the woodcutter bring him his children, who were all happy to see their parents. "Your 6 brothers must come and live with us too," cried the king to his wife. "Then our whole family can live together in happiness." And that is exactly what happened. The end. What did you think about 6 swans? Did the ending surprise you? I thought it was pretty neat. 6 years without talking. That is tough. All right, on to 101 Dalmatians, pop-up book. Pongo and Perdita fell in love the moment their eyes met, but their humans barely noticed each other. Pongo knew how to get their attention. He ran circles around Roger and Anita until the leash wrapped them together. Splash! Roger and Anita fell into the pond. Soaked, they looked at each other and laughed. Look at that. It wasn't long before the 2 loving couples were married. They were one big happy family until evil Cruella de Vil heard that Perdita had 15 puppies. "Where are they? Where are they?" screamed Cruella. "We're not selling the puppies, not a single one," said Roger. Cruella was furious. and vowed to get even. One evening, while Roger, Anita, Pongo, and Perdita were out for their evening stroll, Cruella sent two thugs named Horace and Jasper to steal the puppies. Look at them stealing the puppies. Let's see. Pongo and Perdita were heartbroken and desperate. Even Scotland Yard couldn't find the puppies. Pongo barked and howled the news through a gossip chain called the Twilight Bark. His plea for help finally reached the colonel and Sergeant Tibbs. Sergeant Tibbs had heard barking at the gloomy DeVille place, so he and the colonel went to investigate. You see right down there? It's the colonel and Sergeant Tibbs. While Horace and Jasper were busy watching the television, Sergeant Tibbs helped the puppies escape through a hole in the wall. They almost made it, but Horace and Jasper turned around just in time to see the last puppy sneaking out. You see them watching TV back there? There's a puppy getting pushed through the wall. Pongo and Perdita came to the rescue and led all the puppies away. They had to find their way back home before Cruella found them. They were tired and hungry and far from home. Luckily, a kind of Labrador hid them in a coal shed and showed them a truck that would take them home, if they could sneak past Cruella. Pongo thought of a way to trick Cruella. He had all the puppies jump in the suit. Now we look like Labradors and we can sneak past her, he said. Look at that. Ooh. As the last pup climbed onto the truck, Cruella saw his black and white coat showing through the suit. Get them, she yelled. Cruella tried to bump the truck off the road, but Horace and Jasper crashed into her instead. Oh my goodness. Overjoyed to have all the 101 Dalmatians home, safe and sound, Roger and Anita decided to celebrate. After all, they had a big announcement to make. We'll have a Dalmatian plantation, sang Roger. And they did, and lived happily ever after. The end. Do you like 101 Dalmatians? Have you seen that Disney movie? It's a pretty good one. Well, thank you for joining me for story time this morning. We'll see you next time. I hope you have a wonderful day and get out and enjoy the sunshine. Thank you.